into the Titans. 9.5 was going into 2021. Again, I wanted to fade the Titans last year, and they certainly outperformed expectations. This is one of the wilder kind of 2021 power ranking volatility charts. Bottomed in week 2, and then it was pretty much just straight up all the way up until week 11 when they had that really bizarre loss to the Texans, and then had a little bit of a tough go of it, kind of bleeding into week 16, and then bounced back. Ended up being, again, going 12-5, getting the number 1 seed in the AFC. Went 10-7 against the spread, made a $100 unit better, almost $1,200 to really kind of showcase how low or tepid expectations were for the Titans on a game-to-game basis. And certainly they had some really big wins where they certainly weren't expected to win those. I mean, I'm looking specifically at this sequence of games here. Bills, Chiefs, Colts, Rams, winning all, covering versus all, underdogs in all.
That's when people were really starting to buy, hyping the Titans at that point, because you're ascending by the time you get to mid-season. They've already beat some of the toughest teams on their schedule at that point.
But I just want to go back to the power rankings. Sorry.
Yeah.
To cheat a little bit, because I have the data. This is just using 538s here. They were actually the most bullish of any of the teams. And we kind of see towards about week 15, 16, if you look at some of the other media outlets like Football Outsiders, they were ranked at 20th. PFF had them at 13th. ESPN had them at 17th, and they kind of remained stagnant there. So this is really a team that was extremely volatile. And considering most of the teams we've been through on these streams have really kind of remained the same. And the y-axis is pretty small. But it's a massive, massive range for the Titans last year.
I think increased the volatility is because there are so many moving pieces on this roster.
Yeah, it almost speaks to your point that the statistician's kind of left shaking his head, saying this team shouldn't be good, but they keep on winning.
Yes. I think another good interesting observation, too, is like to not overreact to week 1. Getting blown out to the Cards, 38-13, as field goal favorite. And look at, they plummeted after that one game. And this was probably the biggest single week move that we saw all season. It was just after one game. So they were ranked around 10th, 11th, dropped all the way down to 16th. And then that was the bottom. That was the bottom for them. And just kind of speaks volumes to try not to overreact too much to, a single game performance, much less if that single game performance is in week 1. So here again, a little bit more granular detail on some of these games, kind of looking through it. Again, Tannehill got like a really bad kind of rep, but really only had a handful of bad games.
When I think of a quarterback that's like, okay, like league average, like I wouldn't mind him on my team, like I think of Ryan Tannehill.
Yeah, I'm just looking at this too, again, like just a lot of numbers that speak to the volatility of this team, specifically last year. So I'm looking like even at in week 18 versus the Texans. All right, they ended up winning by 3, but they were up by 3 touchdowns. They were up by 14 versus the Saints, ended up winning by 2. We're up by 9 versus the Jets, ended up losing by 3. Not just volatile on a week-by-week basis, but volatile even intra-game. And I'm looking just too at the contest pick rank, which kind of gives you a proxy of how hot or cold the market is on that team from a betting perspective on a week-by-week basis. We could see kind of mid-season, they were very popular. So 4th ranked, 2nd ranked, 9th ranked, 2nd ranked. And they won actually most of those games. So when the market was high in them, they were actually covering, then started to cool as some of those injuries built up. Okay, so off-season changes. Of course, drafted Treylon Burks, signed Robert Woods, added Austin Hooper, lost A.J. Brown, Julio Jones, of course, are top 2 wideouts. Are only bringing 6 starters back, lost some people on the offensive line as well, and bringing 9 back on the defense, which was certainly one of their strengths, certainly in the back half of the season. A lot of noise around Treylon Burks, like super negative reports or super positive reports. Very difficult to replace A.J. Brown Robert Woods is getting long in the tooth. I think this is like maybe his 10th or 11th year.
Yeah, I
And
was gonna say
coming
coming off a bad injury.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It cannot be overstated enough how important AJ Brown was to this team last year. Like 90% of their expected points added when they went back to throw were to AJ Brown. That's the entirety of their offense. Robert Woods is uncertain to play week 1, and it's a huge loss to this offense. They're going to need to have some sort of production in the passing game, and who's he going to go to?
Going into 2022, again, win total futures at 9, win division to win the division plus 160, to make the playoffs minus 110. So it seems like locking in, some sort of wild card berth there, if not the division, which is quite surprising.
The team is favored in only 2 non-division games.
Yeah.
2, and one of them is the Cowboys, which I'm frankly shocked about.
They're not getting a ton of respect.
Mark is basically saying, okay, we know that the Titans don't project to be very good, but at the same time, we expect the Titans to kind of be good because they've won in the past. But if we're really breaking it down game by game, their team has really lost a step. And I think kind of this is the time to say they were good in the past, but the past is not necessarily indicative of future performance, and now is really the time to jump off.
The other thing is here is there's no wild card, right, coming out of this division.
Yeah, no, they're not getting 2 teams in. Absolutely not.
The wild card's coming from the AFC West.
Yeah.
Or the AFC East.
They could both come from the AFC West.
We haven't previewed the North yet, but I mean, I'm really cold on the North, especially with the Browns kind of falling apart. And again, I'm not a big fan of the Ravens, which Ravens will always be. Actually, it'll be good to add Monty to this discussion, because as we talked about on our last season preview, Joe, who will be showing up from time to time as well, he and I see eye to eye that Lamar Jackson is a joke, whereas Monty is on the other side of that argument.
My number one Lamar Jackson defense is how many bad quarterbacks have ever won MVP, and how many of those have been unanimous.
Mike Trout.
I'll have to think about that one.
That'll be your homework for the next
part, though. That was a very bizarre. That was like
Yeah.
a Warriors 73-9. Like no one's catching up to them. But again, like the 73-9 Warriors, they didn't win a championship.
Yeah, it didn't pay
wasn't
off.
Sustainable. And then again, it wasn't repeatable ever since. So
Teams did
we'll have more debates on over the course of the season.
The AFC South is so bad, we're going to debate the AFC North.